going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Jackwitz. This is the Kaged Review, and this is a review for The Walking Dead Season 10, Episode 3. So far, if you've watched my first two reviews for the season, you know that I'm not very thrilled. I think the first two episodes have been boring. They've led to nothing. They're very anticlimactic. And honestly, there's just not much story there. It's just stalling. So, having said that, this episode started a little bit disjointed. You start out and they've got these time signatures that very quickly flash across the screen. So, you can tell that it's been like 2 hours away, 4 hours away, And during all this time, you're getting these herds of zombies that just keep flooding Alexandria. And so you have all the citizens of Alexandria having to fight off wave after wave after wave of zombie. It was very video game. It really was. It was almost to the point of almost apparently ripping off a couple of things. So you get past all that part, and there's this one point where somebody mentions that they think that this is Alpha from the Whispers that's causing all these herds of zombies to come their way. And at some point, one of the Whisperers actually shows up and talks to Daryl and Michonne, who are at the edge of Alexandria behind the fence, and says that Alpha wants to talk to them. So they have a big Alexandrian town meeting, and they were talking about, the pros and cons of what's about to happen, and the fact that the Whisperers have, thousands of zombies that if they really wanted to could just release them all on Alexandria, and there's no way they could fight them all off. And so Michonne says that the only reasonable thing to do here is to go and talk. At least at this point, all she wants to do is talk, hopefully. And so that's what they do. They embark on a mission to the border between the Whisperers and the rest of the communities. And this has Carol go with them, Daryl, Michonne, a few other selects. So we'll get into that meeting in a second. Another part of this is they have to send people out to deal with zombies. And Gabriel decides that Negan needs to go, and he's going to be going with Aaron. Aaron, of course, does not like this idea because of what happened with Eric, who was his significant other, who was killed by Negan's people. So there's a lot of friction there, and a lot of just, undealt with animosity, especially on Aaron's side. Negan tries to convince him that he's not the same guy that he was. Aaron's just not hearing it. So you get to the standoff with Alpha and the people from Alexandria. And Carol, all the Alexandria people were supposed to drop their weapons. So Alpha breaks away from all the Whisperers and the pack. And she kind of talks to him directly and says, you people have crossed over the border 3 times. We're always paying attention. There needs to be punishment, at which point the Whisperers all pull out guns. And there was quite a few Whisperers there. And then Alpha says, but there doesn't need to be bloodshed because I understand the circumstances. And then she claims a bigger territory than what they already had. She says she's taking some part of the wilderness. And Carol says, well, that's where we hunt. And there was an immediate massive standoff between Carol and Alpha. Alpha starts, challenging Carol, to which point Carol just pulls out a gun and tries to shoot her. Daryl, knocks the gun away so it doesn't do anything. Michonne apologizes. And Alpha says, I forgive you, mother to mother. I understand. And then she takes a real bad jab at, killing Carol's kid and talking about how he was calling her name out. So obviously that just lit a fuse under Carol, and Daryl walked her away. And that was kind of the end of it. Nothing happens there. I don't know if that entirely made sense because Alpha so far has been the type of person to kill first and ask questions later, so I don't know that that necessarily follows who she is, but we'll let that one pass. She did kill her kid, Carol's kid, so maybe there is a little something there. Then you go from that to Negan and Aaron. They're out in the field, and Negan's kind of doing the dirty work for Aaron. Aaron's not willing to help, and then so Negan just says, you know, we need to hash this out. And he starts talking about how, you know, you have to protect your own. Basically saying that Eric dying was Aaron's fault. And so Aaron took another big jab and said, so is that why your wife died? And, you know, so he's kind of throwing Negan's words back at him. Negan tells him to be careful. And then Aaron's like, you know, you got something to say? He's like, yeah, behind you. And there's a couple of zombies that Aaron has to take care of. And I forget what they said it was, but there was some, one of the zombies was covered in, I guess, some kind of pollen or something. And it got in Aaron's eyes. He couldn't see. He finds this abandoned house. And so he's kind of blind for at least for the minute. And a couple of zombies come in. Eventually Negan takes out the two zombies, saves Aaron. And so you can see the conflict building in Aaron because he's used to Negan just being Negan, the guy who will bash somebody's head in with a baseball bat. And here he is trying to help out Aaron, who clearly despises him. And so, you know, you're kind of seeing how maybe he's starting to realize that there is kind of a turn here with Negan. After that, you have Carol, Daryl, Michonne. They have to find a place to stay for the night. And I don't know if this was a house or a factory or what. I'm thinking it was like some kind of like shop or something like that. And you find out that Carol's been taking caffeine pills. She doesn't want to sleep. Well, unfortunately, lack of sleep makes you hallucinate, especially if you had a lot of lack of sleep. At which point Carol has. And so she's hallucinating. There's one point she sees a book, she picks it up, she sees her standing at the head of this table in this portrait and faces of all the people with their throats slit. So she's kind of losing her mind a bit. That obviously is gonna cause some problems. There was a scene where Eugene and Rosita were fighting off zombies together when this big herd was at Alexandria. Where you flash forward, Rosita and Eugene have this kind of heart-to-heart where they're both tired, exhausted. Eugene's trying to make nice with Rosita, and Rosita snaps and says, you know, there is no us. It's never going to happen. You need to get that out of your head. At which point Eugene kind of bitches up a little bit, starts crying a little, and apologizes to Rosita, and, you know, basically says that their friendship was based on him trying to get some kind of relationship with her at some point. After that, there is a scene that came after this that really, I have compared this to The Last of Us a lot of times. Like, there's just so many similar things that happen between that game and this TV series. And then this happens, which frankly is right out of The Last of Us, like to the letter. So if you've never seen The Last of Us, I want to show you this clip real quick.
Come on.
I got you.
Damn it, Bill.
What just happened?
Another one of Bill's stupid traps. Shit, here they come. Just hand to the rope.
Okay, so now you have Carol get strung up upside down exactly like Joel did in the game. You have the exact same shot with the zombies coming through. I mean, I'm sorry, dude. At some point, you got to be like, dude, come on. They've got to be blatantly stealing this. So she is going through zombies, and then she cuts herself down and lands on a piece of glass, I think it was. It goes through her arm. She kills the rest of the zombies. Then Michonne and Daryl find her. She's standing there. All the zombies are down, dead. And so they take her into the doctor, Sadiq, who is really having troubles after dealing with the Whisperers and, him being the one that they let go to be the messenger boy. He's got some, like, PTSD or something going on there. So Sadiq is trying to work on Carol. He can't do it. So there's another doctor that steps in and works on Carol, saves her arm. And then you kind of flash forward where Carol wakes up. She's out of caffeine pills. She was having really bad nightmares about, the Whisperer murders. And so there was a point where just before they went into this like shop or whatever it was that Michonne, Daryl, and Carol went into, where Carol could have swore she saw 3 Whisperers. Daryl and Michonne did not see them. So they're questioning, whether it was real or not because Carol was wigging out. So Carol's kind of looking to Michonne for reassurance, doesn't get it from her. Michonne's like, well, nobody else saw it but you. Then she goes to Daryl and kind of says the same thing. He's like, yeah, I believe you, but you can kind of gather that she knows he's not telling her the truth. And then the end of the show was one of the Whisperers, the same Whisperer, I think it was Gamma actually, that told Daryl and Michonne at Alexandria that they were supposed to meet up with Alpha, wakes up. She's clearly been stabbed. She's got blood all over her. But she's not dead. Her eyes open, and that's where they cut to credits. I'm not entirely sure where she even got injured because there was a scene like in a shop where there were a bunch of zombies that got killed, and there were a couple of shots like when Negan and Aaron were fighting zombies because it wasn't really clear. I didn't get a good view of where this person was at. So I don't know exactly which part of that she got hurt in, but whatever, she's up now, she's awake, she's going to go to Alpha. So for this episode, I thought it was better than the first 2. At least they made some things interesting. Carol, with her hallucinations, sometimes you couldn't exactly tell what was going on because you didn't know what was real and what was not. And I like the fact that they had the really, really good conversation with Negan and Aaron. Now, part of my complaint with this season overall, I can already tell you, is Angela Wing has already said that part of her mission is to make the women very central to the story this time. And I don't care if it's women, men, or anything else, as long as it works. And you're using the best characters to the best of their ability, and that is not the case here. Carol, they've made a very good character in a lot of ways, but when you compare her to Negan, Rick when he was there, and honestly, even Aaron, dude, I thought that like interaction with Aaron and Negan was phenomenal. Now Michonne, I think, has had some stellar moments, but they're not even using Michonne really. They're using Carol and Alpha. And I don't know that I'm sold on Carol. I mean, I like her as a character, don't get me wrong, but I think you need to emphasize your strongest people. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan, as an actor, is probably the strongest on that whole damn cast. And you've used him very little. And finally, in this one here, in this episode, you get him and, like I said, Aaron, with some great moments. But the whole like Carol Alpha standoff, if I'm being honest, isn't really doing a lot for me. Like, I understand Carol wants revenge for what happened, and that makes sense to the story. But you've got to make it interesting, dude. And especially with this episode, her with the caffeine pills and hallucinations and shit. I don't know that adds to her character at all. So, I did like this, though. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was a step up. And that's a big thing for me. They needed to step it up. I think overall there were still some weak points to it. I don't know that I care about Eugene's romantic fancies with Rosita. The Sadiq thing was cool. I did like that. You know, him kind of having the PTSD. I thought that was cool. So I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. It's definitely a step up from what it has been. Could be better. Definitely could emphasize some things that they have not yet. It'll be interesting to see if they, find a way to make Negan kind of a leader for this rebellion against the Whisperers. If they don't do that, like seriously, if they don't do that, they've screwed up big time, because that's what everybody wants to see. And honestly, I'm getting the feeling that that's not where they're going, and I think that's a mistake. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's where I'm at. 6 out of 10. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackwitz. Kaged Nation out.